If there is one thing that I absolutely love about shonens, it's workout sequences. Witnessing the characters of the story give it their all to power up and prepare for a new challenge has always filled me with motivation. Those feelings eventually becoming the main reason behind my love for mangas. They also drove me to exercise, and while I do not rely on them anymore to get me going, there is still nothing that I enjoy more than a good training arc. In that aspect, Grappler Baki offers a spectacular catalog to pick from. The eponym hero of the narrative going through two of those in the first half of the story, cementing this series as one of the most anabolic of all times. A topic I've already detailed in a video you can find in the description. Today, I want to take a closer look at these workouts that inspire so, to try and see if they're actually applicable in real life or relevant in any way, shape or form. As I've explained in my video where I analyzed Baki's routine to beat the Yasha ape, anyone trying to copy the training of anime characters thinking it'll get them jacked is a fool. These regimens are exaggerated to the point that they take on a legendary status, the goal being to inspire readers by exposing them to feats of strength or resilience far surpassing that of which a normal human should be capable of. That being said, there are still certain things that we can learn from them. And while training like your favorite shonen hero won't necessarily lead to a muscular body, the initial drive born from the excitement of following in his footsteps can also be supplemented by a hefty dose of knowledge that will help promote results in the future. For that reason, I won't be offering you any Baki anima lifting program today, as I've already done so in the past. Instead, we're going to look at actual instances of training in the story, and see what information, if any, can be taken from them. Besides getting stronger through actual battle, Baki characters also spend a lot of time developing their bodies via more common means of resistance training. The best example being Hanma Jr. himself, whose obsession with self-improvement occupies a central role in the story and is one of his most prominent character traits. In opposition with his brother Jack, who always had a masochistic relationship with exercising, to the point that he was absolutely incapable of making gains without resorting to steroids. His mistake, of course, was to never let his body rest and repair, while Baki understands the importance of recovery, and hence has always gotten good results from his training sessions. His physique evolution correlating directly to the workouts he undertakes. Having rejected more orthodox methods of muscle building, he's always coming up with new ways to trash his body and stimulate growth, which is exactly the type of mindset that is needed for anyone who wishes to get serious about bodybuilding. The sport requiring not only a will of steel, but also the curiosity to always explore new methods and analyze results, both essential qualities for the creation of a solid physique. If you remember, Baki started his journey under the tutelage of his father, before being placed in the care of a well-renowned coach, who had him on a top-level fitness routine. This method of training lacked any semblance of flexibility and proved to be way too cookie-cutter of an approach for an Hanma, eventually leading to him trashing the place and leaving to go do things his own way. Overall, the bodybuilding program that his trainer had him on seemed to be a classic bro split, with minimal intensity and too little volume to stimulate a hyperactive youth, on top of representing a type of training that Baki simply did not enjoy. The first lesson we can take from this is therefore that the best routine for you is the one that you will enjoy doing and therefore stick to, not the one that is the most optimal on paper. Conventional methods are conventional because they work for the most amount of people, but if you find they don't apply to you, don't be afraid of pulling a Baki and paving your own way. Especially if you consider that the program you follow is lacking in certain aspects. In this case, these traditional muscle building workouts were void of some critical hypertrophic attributes that the hero of the story and other characters would later demonstrate through their personal workout methodologies, and that we'll begin to analyze in this Grappler Baki Glossary of training, regrouping every instance of physical development present in the manga and transposing them to real life. First off, let's start with the incredibly gruesome summer camp our hero put himself through to gain enough muscles to be able to defeat a giant ape in hand-to-hand combat. That premise alone is already ludicrous, which is what makes it so great in my opinion, because anyone who's read it knows how serious the entire atmosphere surrounding the preparation for the fight is, and how dedicated Baki had to be to come out of this whole ordeal alive. This is probably my favorite training arc of all times. One, because it resulted in 20 pounds of muscles being built through absolutely savage workouts, but also because it illustrates the importance of repetition in a routine, and the type of attitude necessary to build a good physique. It also resonates with me because it reminds me of a summer that changed my life, during which I trained for 5 to 6 hours every single day and was essentially habited by a feverish spirit of progression. The same type of manic energy that Baki is experimenting and that led to him doubling in size in the span of 3 months. What it taught us there isn't necessarily that you should work with a deadline in mind, but rather that you can't artificially limit the length of your workouts, because that could cause you to miss out on much needed volume under the guise of being reasonable. As long as you can recover from it and keep progressing, putting in long hours is okay. This repetition aspect, beyond just taking place within the workout, is also a daily occurrence that takes center stage in Baki's life, as he can be seen shaping his body throughout the entire story, from the young age of 13 all the way into his late teens. Lots of volume is not enough. Consistency is also key. A man who trains 4 hours 2 days a week will be outdone by one who trains 2 hours 6 times a week. To be able to reach that level of regularity, your recovery will have to be on point, which will force you to have a regimented lifestyle, schedules being your best friend in this endeavor. When it's time to eat, you eat. When it's time to rest, you rest. And when it's time to train, you motherfucking kill it. Excuses are for the weak, and knowing exactly when you're supposed to work out will force you to stay consistent. Entering a steady routine will require some effort on your part, but once you've settled in it, it will become your most faithful ally. And just like Baki, the action of engaging in physical activities will become as natural to you as walking or breathing. But putting in long hours on a daily basis is not enough, as a lack of intensity can result in stagnation. That lesson was taught to us by a lesser-known character of the Bakiverse, who is the literal personification of the saying "go big or go home." That man, known as Garland, will eventually receive a muscle manga episode of his own, as he is criminally underrated and never spoken about much when discussing the series, even though his training arc, albeit short, might be even more badass than Baki's. Possessed by an undying love for the motherland, he expressed his patriotism by digging a crater, an excavation project he would undertake shirtless in minus 40 degrees weather, with a simple pickaxe and his muscles for only tools. Uprooting entire trees and pushing a wagon loaded with rocks until your body gives out, now that's what I call exerting yourself. This level of intensity ensures that the work you're doing is actually damaging your muscle fibers and putting your body in recovery mode, which justifies the rest you will be taking afterwards. And the most practical way to trigger this phenomenon is to go to failure using relevant weights that will pose a real challenge to you, without going overboard and biting more than you can chew. Garland understood that problematic, and he made sure to never exceed his limits, always staying at the brink of destruction, which is the best way to force the body to adapt to a challenging environment and get bigger. For you, this might mean doing 4 sets of squats, but the result is the same. All these variables lead to the same goal: progression. You can apply all the volume, frequency, and intensity in the world, but if it's not scheduled properly, or if it doesn't lead to a form or another of progressive overload, it's all for nothing. This also means that when you start, you have to make sure to give your body time to adapt to the workload, as jumping in guns blazing can easily lead to injury or burnout. A perfect parable for this ethos is the boot camp that Baki went through before his fight against his father, where he faced off against 5 military members presenting varying levels of difficulty. He didn't fight all 5 at once, nor did he start with the strongest of the bunch. Instead, he began by taking out the weakest member of the troop and worked his way from there all the way to the final boss. This is a perfect symbolic representation of progressive overload, where small increments in weights eventually lead to big changes. Each new combat was also approached with a similar outlook, but the precautions surrounding these different encounters were all different. This is how you ought to think about your training. Each different movement you do is its own entity, but they all participate in making you better down the line. You might not want to do them all at once, and the order in which you organize their occurrence is just as important as the patterns you select for your program. Ultimately, you should also notice a significant amount of progression in your performance, as the weights become easier and easier to move and eventually need to be augmented. The mentality of Baki, who risked his life to become stronger, was that it had to be done. While not in as dire of a situation as he is, your mindset should reflect a similar imperative, the absolute necessity for progression, around which the entire routine will articulate itself, using the parameters discussed earlier as levers to make it happen. Who would have thought that we could learn so much about training from an anime where the hero has imaginary fights against human-sized praying mantises? Just like with any other shonen of this caliber, there exists a goldmine of wisdom underneath the layers of insanity that envelope Grappler Baki, and it's always a pleasure to peel them off for you guys. I will continue to bring you more anime workout videos from various mangas, and my focus for the next few months will be placed on a new series, one that I'm sure many of you will be hyped to discover. Talk to you soon, and thanks for watching.